What's up, my Yu-Gi Bros? I'm your host, the one, the only, the RJB0. Welcome to Q&A Tuesday. I have a huge amount of Q&A to go through, and so I have a lot to get through, so I'm going to do this kind of as a lightning round. But first off, I've been on kind of a hiatus since Christmas. I just haven't really had the time to make videos, but a lot of the videos I talked about making before Christmas, I will be making in the near future. Tomorrow, I am going to be talking about some of the predictions I made in this video. On Thursday, I am going to be making some New Year's resolutions for my YugiTube channel, and then on Friday, of course, we're going to have another Casual Friday, so if you want me to answer any questions on Casual Friday, ask me in the comment section below, and I will try to get to those. Let's start off on the Q&A. We start with Necroz013 asking, what are your thoughts on Chaos Dragons? Asking potentially about Chaos Emperor Dragon coming back. Chaos Dragons are a mid-paced aggro deck with recursion, and its big beater being a 2800 attack point monster. Does this sound familiar to you? Yes, I'm insinuating that we already have a fast-paced reoccurring deck with the 2800 beater that is probably a lot better than Chaos Dragons, and that's Clifford's. Chaos Dragons are just entirely outpaced this format, and even if they were to receive a Chaos Emperor Dragon, they wouldn't do a huge amount. Alex Bell asks, do you think Satellarknights or Mermails will be better this format? I think that remains to be seen. In the first part of the format, I think Mermails are going to do better. After Dark Law comes out, it's up in the air. Alex Bell also asks, will we see a Mermail deck profile soon? Yes, next week. Hopefully. Clayfigure7 asks, while it may not be as viable as Chaos, do you think having a Fire, Water, or Wind, Earth counterpart to, say, BLS, make elemental mashups more common? Any other thoughts on the idea? We already have those in the form of Frost and Flame Dragon and Desert Twister, neither of which is an amazing card, but the concept does exist, and we might see a couple more elemental mashups. The problem with elemental mashups is that Konami has made the elemental cards much more specific to their attribute than the Chaos cards. Chaos cards have a lot more synergy because Light and Dark do not have as specific mechanics as Water, Wind, Fire, and Earth. Water does a lot more graveyard and control. Wind does bouncing and spinning back to the deck. Fire does a lot of destruction and burn, and Earth focuses on swarming. While they could potentially work together, I don't think that a straight-up mashup of just elemental cards is likely to appear in the near future. Nicholas Bluetrike asks, do you think Tengu to 3 will give Yang Zings a boost? Just your thoughts on what Tengu will help. I don't think that Tengu to 3 is actually going to help much of anybody at the beginning of this format. We might see a couple of more synchro-centric decks once we see the new junk stuff get a boost from 3 Tengu, but other than that, there just aren't really any decks right now that have a lot of synergy with Tengu. David Casimir asks if I can show my 3-step amazing hairdo that I said that I use. Well, the first step is after I get out of the shower. Actually, while I'm in the shower, I comb it back while it's wet. So I comb it, slick it perfectly back. That gives it kind of the backward swooshy shape that happens all the time. And I leave that there until it really starts to dry. At which point I comb it straight over, like a straight up awkward comb over. Final step is when my hair is almost entirely dry, I just take my hands and I just go right through the back, and that gives that really nice swish that goes on. Multispeed 98 asks, what is your favorite card? Junk Warrior, Set Abyss Rising, Archetype Mermail deck, Junk Doppel playstyle, aggro control with toolbox, and a high complexity. Lethal Lemon Laser asks how I see Harpies doing with Harpies Harpist and what tier I consider them to be. I think that the Harpy Harpist has not changed the playstyle of the deck. It hasn't changed the mechanics of Harpies, and the problem with the mechanics of Harpies is it's kind of awful. All of the pluses in Harpies come from Hunting Ground and the Hysteric cards, and Harpy Harpist does not support any of those things. And all of those things, except Hunting Ground, are non-searchable, and Hunting Ground isn't that great this format because most back row is chainable. Lethal Lemon Laser also asked if I watched Korra, and if so, how I feel about the ending. I was so pumped about the ending. Oh my goodness. I was a Korrasami shipper from like the second that they became friends. Well, not really the second they became friends. I actually considered it after I thought that Opal and Korra had a ton of chemistry. And I thought, oh, Korra could be bisexual. And then after that, I was looking at the friendship with Asami, and it just kept growing, and I was like, oh, this is definitely going to happen, and I will be so happy if it happens. And it happened. So I'm really happy, and it was a great ending to a great series. Yu-Gi-Oh! Asks, can you give us one Yu-Gi-Oh! And one non-Yu-Gi-Oh! Related prediction for 2015? Yu-Gi-Oh! Related prediction. I think that Mermails are going to see a lot of play, and Cliffworts are going to dominate the first month of the new format, and then after Dark Darklaw comes out, the format is going to reverse back to a dark dominant format. As far as non-Yugioh related predictions, I think that either Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren is going to announce a candidacy for president. The Stone Dog 78 asks, how do you feel about Secret Village of the Spellcasters and Shaddolls? I think that it's a really good card in the Neckloth and Cliffort matchups, especially if they have a good amount of field clearing and back row hate in the deck already. Once you get Secret Village out against Clifforts or Neckloths, then they are in pretty bad shape. The only worry against Neckloths is if they're running Dance Princess, and nobody in the OCG so far has really run Dance Princess, so I think that it is unlikely that in the beginning at least we are going to see Dance Princess in Neckloths until Secret Village of the Spellcasters possibly becomes more popular, at which point I think that we are going to start seeing Dance Princess again. Quickman Down .012 asks, out of the big three decks in the meta, which do you see getting the most hits on the next list? I think the Burning Abyss and Clifforts are going to receive the most hits, since they're the two most dominant decks of the format. He also asks, do you think Necroz will get hit on the ban list right after they come out in the TCG? Probably not. Konami has been showing a lot of leniency toward recently released decks, so I don't think Necroz will get hit right after they come out in the TCG, whether or not they're broken. Tyler Shayna asks, what are your thoughts on pole position in Fire Fist? I don't know why you would bother putting pole position in Fire Fist, because naturally it's going to kill itself when you start an infinite loop, and then you're going to have to deal with wild rulings from the judges, and nobody will be happy and won't even help your cards. For those of you who don't know, if pole position creates an infinite loop because a spell card was giving a monster more attack points, then it will kill itself. Or, if that infinite loop was created by starting an optional move, such as summoning a monster or activating a card, that play is now illegal. It's just not fun in the rulings world. By the way, before I continue, many people are pointing out that I was wrong in my ruling about star drawing, that if star drawing is used as a rank up material instead of just a regular Xyz material, then it does not give the rank up monster the additional effect, because it was not being actively used as an Xyz material, it was just being treated as an Xyz material once it was under the monster. Slate Warrior, in pointing that out, also asks, what is the deck or playstyle that can make the best use of Time Seal? Nobody's going to use Time Seal because there's nothing that can make good use of Time Seal. There's no effective way of recycling it turn after turn for free, which would be the only reason why that card would cause a problem to the meta or would be any kind of threat to anybody. Otherwise, you're just simplifying your game state for no good reason, and you're losing out on a card that could have been a combo piece to give you more advantage. Carlos Gomez asks, do you think that Mass Change II is going to be good in Shaddolls to make Darklaw with Winda as the material? Mass Change II and Darklaw are going to be good with any Dark deck next format. If the Dark deck can compete in the first place, then Darklaw and Mass Change II are good for the deck, and that includes Shaddolls. Sijim Trom asks, how well could Spellbook Shaddolls do? Awfully. They have very little synergy, and the Spellbook engine and Shaddoll engine will clog in the weirdest ways. Just ask Simo. Angel Gonzalez asks, what is your opinion on the DDD archetype, and how well do you think it could perform in the TCG if it was released? DDD is a really powerful archetype that costs a lot of life points, which is not a good idea in a format as fast as the one we're in, when there is so much damage to be dealt every turn in the current format. I don't think that a deck whose main mechanic is dealing yourself damage is probably going to be very effective. The only reason why Clifforts can survive is because the things that deal damage to them inherently give you advantage when you deal damage. They are optional, or they're skill drain, in which case your opponent can't make the plays they were going to make anyway, and so you are in pretty good shape even though you lost that life points. DDD does it on a turn-by-turn basis and on a much larger scale than Clifforts. Yes, they can stop that damage from being taken, but in that way that they have to be a little more cloggy to stop themselves from taking as much damage in the process of doing what they do. It's just going to be a fairly brick-heavy deck in the near future, unless, of course, they get more good cards, which is entirely plausible, and that will totally invalidate my current assessment. Anime Guy, some number of zeros after a 1, asks, what are your opinions on Nepheshaddoll Fusion, and do you think players will have to dedicate an entire deck to the card, or do you think that it has playability in something like Denko Dolls? I think that Nepheshaddoll Fusion is a really good card, whether or not it is in a specialized deck. I think that it's going to be used fairly frequently, and it can be recycled with Hidden Armory, and that's pretty cool. Anime Guy, some number of zeros after a 1, asks also, do you think it would be a good idea for Konami to produce highly competitive pre-made decks of the top tier decks for sale? For example, as they have been doing in the OCG in various vendors' halls. I think it would be nice for the players like me who really want to be able to acquire the cards, and we just have real trouble trading for them. But I think for Konami it's a bad idea because it would reduce the profit that they're going to be getting from booster sets. And even if it were to happen, do you really think that Konami would make it into a budget thing? Do you think Konami would sell these for like $50 a piece, or like even $80 a piece? No, these things would be just as expensive as the deck is to make right now. Shaddolls Alliance asks, do you think the new Blackwing support announced in the OCG will make them any better? It'll probably make them better. Whether it will be a competitive deck remains to be seen, but right now it's looking like the Synchrons are actually pretty darn good, and their extra monster that can summon itself from the hand is pretty darn good. Shaddolls Alliance also asks, where is your cat? Haven't seen him in a while. Right here. Galactic God asks, do you think heroes need Stratos in order to be competitive in the upcoming format? I don't think they need Stratos in order to be competitive, because they have Shadow Mist, which gets Dark Law, which is better than anything else that heroes can search right now with something like Stratos. Yeah, Stratos, you get that normal summon or that special summon from the deck or whatever, you get a hero monster search, but honestly, wouldn't you rather have a walking Macrocosmos with a banish from hand effect than whatever monster you're going to add from Stratos' effect? Yes, it reduces the potential for them to OTK, but I think ultimately it's going to be a more consistent deck with Shadow Mist than it would have been if they just had Stratos. Yes, Stratos would probably make them better, but it isn't necessary. Hades X736 asks, why do you reckon the TCG has to wait so long to get OCG exclusives like Nebra Disc and Noted? Probably because those cards were ridiculously good in the OCG, and the reason why Konami makes OCG exclusives is to test out whether or not they are acceptable for the TCG, and Konami has probably decided that all of these OCG exclusive cards are not acceptable for the TCG yet, while they're still making profit off of the old things. They're probably going to release them once they believe that they've been power creeped, or once the decks that would make them incredibly broken are hit in some way, say by hitting Artifact Moral Talk. WheezyLeaf90383 asks, is Skill Drain a better main or side deck card this format for decks that aren't Cliff Forts? I would say that it's a better side deck card, because if you run Skill Drain in the main deck and you meet up with a Cliff Fort matchup, you're boned. Destroyer831642 asks, what would be the best deck to use Sophia in? I would say that it is probably BA, since BAs can make level 6 ritual monsters more effectively with more advantage gained than other decks. Although Shaddolls can probably do it fairly well if you really want to run Sophia. Right now, I don't think there isn't really a good deck to run Sophia in. Destroyer831642 also asks what I would hit to ultimately kill heroes. Wow, this is the first person I've ever read who really wants to kill heroes. I would probably hit... Ooh, that's a tough choice. The thing about heroes is they're very difficult to get rid of. If you hit one card, they're going to shift to another strategy. I would probably say Emergency Call and Errata. There isn't really one card that you can hit from heroes that would kill them. He also asked, what do you think was the most broken card of all time that was originally released in a booster pack as a common Super Rejuvenation? Ara Storm asks, RJ, now the gun is at 3 again. If I'm building Mermails, which level 4 monsters should I play? Obviously, I should play 3 Pike, but do I need Aqua Spirit, or should I just play 1 Turge? I'm running 1 Turge and 1 Aqua Spirit right now, because I think they're both good, and Aqua Spirit allows you to make rank 4 plays in the turn that you summon a Pike. And I've just run 1 and 1 for Turge and Aqua Spirit because you don't always want Turge in your hand. And Turge can actually make you brick in your opening hand. So 1 and 1 is good. OJ the Black asks, can Necroz be a tier 0 deck in the TCG? I'm not even convinced that they're going to be a top tier deck. I think that Burning Abyss is just such a strong deck, and that the decks that are out right now in the TCG, maybe because of just the environment of the TCG, maybe because some cards that we have in the TCG that they don't have in the OCG, and vice versa, I think that the TCG matchups against Necroz are going to be way better than Necroz matchups against the current top tier. Jason Bai asks, what do you think of Dark Law in Mermails? It can get rid of dead controllers easily with Mass Change Second. I think that Dark Law, I'm going to be running Mass Change Second and 1 Dark Law and 1 Acid in my Mermail deck once the cards come out. So I think that Dark Law is a perfectly good idea, particularly since it's going to be one of the best cards of the coming format. Garunix King asks, what would it take to make Fire Kings good? What is the deck missing? Maybe a hand trap monster that can destroy your Garunix? I would say it needs more quick effects. Right now, it's got a lot of trigger effects, and it doesn't do so hot because its trigger effects are slow, and they take a turn to use, and they, for the most part, just kind of destroy cards. And that's not really helpful this format, and their other effects are mostly things that allow you to go for rank 4s, which are also not that great this format. So they need to be faster, and they need to be able to generate advantage through things other than destroying cards. The Divergency asks, thoughts on the new Synchrons? Does that plus Tengu make Plant Synchro Tier 1? I think that Junk Doppel has the potential to be a very good rogue deck. I don't think it's going to be Tier 1 just because it's a fairly inconsistent deck, and it relies for the most part on really big plays. And there are a lot of ways to stop really big plays this format. So I think that it is going to see a lot of rogue deck play. We're going to be seeing it top a lot of regionals, but it's not going to be seen as a Tier 1 deck that you see frequently at the top tables. The Divergency also asks thoughts on Pendulum Scraps. I think that they could have been good, but the problem with anything that is a pendulum deck that isn't entirely made of pendulums is you're going to be drawing the wrong pendulums at the wrong times. Pendulums are by their nature kind of cloggy. Divergency also asks, have you ever watched Yu-Gi-Oh! The Abridged series? I think it's funny, but Team 4-Star is better. Team Innovation Yu-Gi-Oh! Asks, what's your opinion on Stratos not coming back to the TCG? We did in the OCG. In the OCG, Stratos never got banned. Stratos has been limited in the OCG since basically he came out. However, in the TCG, his not coming back is going to have very little impact on whether or not heroes are competitive. Jeff Badilla asks, is it a good idea to build spellbooks in this format or for the next meta? I don't think spellbooks are going to be a good idea from here on in unless they get Spellbook of Judgment back. Black Dragon 12 asks, hey RJB0, if I'm playing Lightsworns, what do I side for the Nekloth matchup? Breakthrough Skill. Breakthrough Skill and anything that can stop special summons. Banished for 2 turns asks, what could be competitively original in the upcoming meta? There are a lot of Shadow variants, a lot of interesting Shadow variants that have potential going into the next format because of the release of new cards. Aside from that, we are unlikely to see a huge amount of interesting stuff doing anything at the top tables of major events. You're probably going to see a couple of things maybe getting into the top 8 of a couple of regionals out there, but really for the most part this format is not conducive to rogue decks. Pointy Stars Vio asks, my question for the future one, do you prefer it when Konami takes cards off of the ban list when the game changes so you can use them, or do you think they did the crime, they do the time for life? I don't think that any card, for the most part, there are a couple of cards that are exceptions to this rule. I don't think any card should be on the list forever. I think that most cards are going to get power creeped out at some point, and I am glad when some banned cards come out. And Posiel asks, if I could bring back any banned cards with the new Errata, what cards would they be, and what would the new Errata for them be? Well, first off, I'd start with Zen Mighty. I'd bring Zen Mighty back to 3 and give it a named once per turn effect, so you can only use one Zen Mighty effect per turn. I would also bring back Rescue Cat with a named once per turn effect, and a lot of other things with named once per turn effects. So that is Q&A Tuesday. Once again, if you have any questions for me to answer this Friday on Casual Friday, ask me in the comment section below. And, of course, subscribe for more deck discussion, analysis, and general Yu-Gi-Oh! Shenanigans. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, hit that thumbs up button. If you didn't, let me know why in the comment section below. And I will see you tomorrow. I got a jet, guys. See ya.